Have you guys ever picked up a moon rock? Or do you own any moon dust? Have you ever looked through a telescope and saw the American flag that was planted on the moon? And have you always wanted to go back and build a colony on the moon? These are great questions. Hello, conspiracy nuts. This is Byron Dice, and you're listening to Let's Get to the Bottom of That, where each week I'm joined by Mike and Jason, and we will cover a topic that has been left out in the public square, unattended and covered with questions from the official story. Today is episode 12, the moon landing, real or fake? And if you're a critical, free thinker, get your tinfoil hats, put them on, sit back and relax, and let's get to the bottom of that. Dice Man Enterprises exclusively presents a talk show that will get to the bottom of things once and for all. And now here's your host for Let's Get to the Bottom of That, three weirdos on a mic. What's up, my weirdos?
What's up?
My weirdos. Well, again, this is Byron Dice. This is Let's Get to the Bottom of That. Mike is in studio.
How's it going, everyone?
And Jason is again in the field trying to find a lunar module.
Absolutely.
So how's it going out there? Have you found it? Have you uncovered a lunar module?
No, just a whole bunch of nothing.
Okay. Well, that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the moon landing, which, of course, if you're a avid listener of this show, you know that we talk about things that are weird and strange. We always want to get to the bottom of things. Well, the moon landing has been since 1969, and some people out there think that it was faked, that we really didn't actually go to the moon. Some people say, yeah, we did. We went to the moon. We beat the Russians, that whole thing. That's what we're talking about today. And we'll let you, the listener, decide based on our research and our evidence that we've uncovered. Did we go to the moon? Should we go back? And who cares?
That's a great question. The last one, who cares?
Well, I will start off by saying, since last week we just covered the topic Operation Mockingbird.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and state that the evidence presented to me, just like we talked about last week, people give me this information, and then I have to disseminate this information and go, oh, okay, we went to the moon. There's some astronauts. They look official. They got this patch on their sleeve says NASA. There's a rocket that took off. Of course it's real. I mean, because
it was on TV.
It was on TV. Okay, so number one, I wasn't there in 1960. I was born in 68. I wasn't at the rocket ship that took off. Maybe there's somebody in the audience that was. You can comment.
Yeah, but you were alive when it happened.
Yeah, yes, I was alive.
1 year old, man.
I was alive when it happened. Hey, here's a question of the day for today's episode. Were you there? That's the question of the day. Were you actually there when the rocket took off in 1969 or all the way up to 1972? All the Apollo missions, were you actually on the ground and physically saw the rocket take off? That's the question of the day. I'll put that out there. I don't know what the poll will be. The poll will be how many antennas were on the lunar module.
Okay.
I have no idea, but it'll be out there. Somebody can find out. So the question is it real or is it fake? I'll go ahead and talk about this. I got my bullet point. Here's what I do know, or here's what I've been given information from. Apollo 11, which was called the Eagle. The Eagle has landed.
Yep.
1969, July 20th, there was a lunar landing site. They landed in the Sea of Tranquility. That's what they called it on the moon. Now, here's the evidence. I don't have this personally, but people somewhere has this information. They have countless images. Okay, so that means pictures of people on the moon. They have videos of people on the moon. They have lunar samples. Now, I don't know where these lunar samples are, but I have seen moon bags before. I did a show with my wife not too long. Well, it was about 5 years ago, where they found moon bags
What is that?
It's a bag that said moon bag and had moon rocks in it. It's where they kept the moon rocks in and came back from the moon with it.
Okay.
And they found it in this weird warehouse.
Really?
And they were trying to sell it on eBay.
This was on a TV show you saw, or?
No. It was like an article I read.
Oh, okay.
That they found the moon bag and they had moon rocks and somebody was trying to sell it on eBay. They found it in a warehouse.
Interesting. Okay.
Which is, who I don't know. Is that from Arizona or is it from the moon? Who knows?
don't
know. Let's see. They said they had scientific data to prove it. I don't know about that because I heard the data's been scrubbed. More than that, human exploration has left its mark on the moon's surface. They say there's actual footprints, things that are on the surface that you can see, and that proves that we were there. This is my last bullet point, and then Mike's going to tell us why the moon isn't even real. It's really not up there. It's just a picture. It's a hologram. Right? It's not even. In 2009, and this is interesting, 2009, we sent a lunar reconnaissance orbiter to map the lunar surface in 3 or 4 orders of magnitude. It had more resolution than we had ever had before. And this was a professor? Help me, Jason. Professor Ojha. Ojha. O-J-H-A. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Ojha.
I'm going to go with Ojha. He said every single Apollo landing site was pictured, and it was absolutely stunning.
Okay.
So that was 2009, reconnaissance orbiter. They sent a thing up there to take pictures, and they see the actual landing spots.
So let me stop you right there because I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to say something. Okay, so that lunar reconnaissance orbiter, they said high resolution. It did have high resolution, but it was also 12 miles away in orbit from the surface of the moon.
Okay.
So 12 miles. So when you do look at the pictures, it doesn't look high resolution. I looked at the pictures. It doesn't look high resolution, but you got to keep in mind that it's 12 miles away. So I was intrigued. I was like, why 12 miles, right?
Mm-hmm.
That seems pretty far. Why couldn't they put it in orbit closer, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we put one of those rovers on Mars. Why can't they do that on the moon?
So to put this in perspective, Google launched February 8th of 2005 one of their satellites that orbits to Earth for Google Maps.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that orbits to Earth 8 to 1,500 feet around the Earth in the atmosphere.
What?
Yeah, so it was a specific point around, it orbits around like where they can orbit, where they can get the best pictures. So it's 8 to 15,000 feet from where it doesn't get out of the orbit, and if that makes sense.
Okay.
If I might be butchering that, but anyway, those resolution of those pictures from Google, and that was 2005, have higher resolution than it did from the NASA lunar reconnaissance orbiter.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering why is that? That was kind of sketchy for me. Like, okay, so Google from 2005 has better pictures than NASA, and that was in 2009 versus 2005. So that was something I thought was interesting.
That is a little strange. I don't know
That's
why
definitely strange.
the 12 miles. That's weird. Why wouldn't they get closer?
Yeah.
Have you seen the picture?
It was
No, I haven't.
It was an unmanned thing, right? The 2009. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. When you guys get a chance, check out the pictures. They're pretty neat.
I will look that up in a second. And first of all, I'm going to go through all the Apollos. Then I'm going to hand it to Mike. He's got some information. Let's just talk about this. 1969, Apollo 11, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon, and the duration they were on the surface was 21 minutes, and the EVA time, which was, what did you say that stood for, Mike?
Extra vehicular activity, which is where they
were driving around.
Yeah, which is where they're out of the spacecraft, and they're relying on their spacesuits basically.
Okay, so that was 2 minutes and 31 seconds. Then in November 19th, same year, Apollo 12, the Intrepid.
Wait, I had 2 hours and 31 minutes.
Oh, is that what that is? Oh, I don't know why it says 2:30. I just thought that was 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 hours and 31 minutes.
Okay. So wait a minute. So the total time was 21 hours? That's what this is reading. That looks like minutes.
Show it to me, Bennett.
Right here? Yeah, 20. I'm getting this off of Wikipedia, which is our trusted source.
Okay. Yeah.
So that looks like minutes, right? Total time, and then here.
There it says,
Yeah, you're right. It's hours here.
Yeah, it's days, hours, minutes.
Oh gosh, why didn't I look at the parentheses?
Yeah, man.
Operation Mockingbird in full swing.
Yep. Yeah. So extravehicular activity time for Apollo.
So
11.
they were 2 hours and 31 minutes driving around on the moon, playing golf, whatever.
Yep.
And then 1969, Apollo 12, the Intrepid landed on Oceans of Storms.
Another part of the moon.
Yeah, another part of the moon. They were there for an hour and actually a day and 7 hours. 1 day, 7 hours, 31 minutes. And the EVA time there was 7 hours and 45 minutes. Then in February 1971, the Antares, Apollo 14, landed with, I forgot, the Apollo 12 was Charles Pete Conrad and Alan Bean. And then Apollo 14, Alan B. Shepard and Edgar Mitchell landed, and they were there for a day, 9 hours and 30 minutes, and they spent on the EVA 9 hours and 21 minutes. And then the Falcon, Apollo 15, landed July 30th, 1971. That was Dave Scott, James Irwin. They were there for 2 days, so they keep getting increased. 2 days, 18 hours, 55 minutes, and then they spent 18 hours and 33 minutes in the EVA. And then Apollo 16, Orion, landed 21 April 1972, and they stayed there for 2 days, 23 hours and 2 minutes. That was John Young, Charles Duke, and they spent EVA time 20 hours and 14 minutes. And then the last was Apollo 17, the Challenger, 11th of December 1972. That was Eugene Cernan and Harris Jack Schmidt. They spent 3 days, 2 hours and 59 minutes on the moon, and EVA time was 22 hours and 4 minutes. And that is the last time we set foot on the moon, was December 11th, 1972.
Right.
So, that being said, I just laid out everything that all the information that's been given to me.
So 6 successful manned missions to the moon.
Yes. And I'm sure they got, so you're driving around for 22 hours. You're picking up moon rocks, moon dust. Not sure what you're bringing back to. Is this stuff in a lab somewhere?
Yeah, they all brought back samples. I have Apollo 11. They returned back like 48 pounds of samples. Apollo 12, 75 pounds. You might have noticed we skipped over Apollo 13 there because that was actually a failed attempt.
Hey, I saw that movie.
Apollo 13?
With Tom Hanks.
Okay.
Tom Hanks.
Yep. So, yeah.
That was probably Operation Mockingbird.
So that was the third landing attempt, which was aborted in transit to the moon due to some sort of failure, and the crew was able to use the landing module as a lifeboat in return to Earth, and lifeboat in quotes there. That's what I'm reading. So the mission was labeled as a successful failure because obviously they all made it back, but it was a failure because they didn't achieve their goal.
Yeah. And there were from the moon. I think there was 3 guys on that one.
I think so.
Yep. Yeah, they were really upset because they wanted to step on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the guys' names
from Apollo 13. Yeah. James Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes.
That's right.
Yep, those 3, and that was April 11th through the 17th in 1970.
Now, according to the movie, one of them got blamed.
Oh, someone got blamed.
Well, yeah, one of the 3 did something wrong. He pushed the airlock or didn't do something right, and something. Okay. And they were like, "You shouldn't have done that," and he was just kind of, "Hey, I was doing my job. This is normal procedure," and then something froze up.
Very interesting.
Yeah, you haven't seen the movie? It's pretty dramatic.
I did see the movie. Actually, we watched it in school when I was growing up.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
as propaganda.
Yeah.
Hey, see, we did go.
Yeah.
Propaganda. We did go. Look at this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess while we're kind of setting the stage here, it's important to note that the director of NASA during the Apollo missions was Werner von Braun. And I hope I'm saying that correct. It's
I didn't know he was the director.
Yeah, he was. And
the Nazi?
Yeah, so he is actually one of the Nazi scientists that secretly moved to the U.S. following World War II during Operation Paperclip.
Paperclip?
Paperclip, yep. So that's
no, wait a minute. Now I've heard von Braun was, they've used his theories on how to get rockets into space. Like he was like the main guy. Everybody looked at his work to get rockets from the ground
the
to
Saturn
orbit.
The Saturn V rocket is like his accomplishment.
So was that before or after? Were they using his work while he was just doing whatever Nazi stuff he was doing, or was it when they brought him over here?
So he was doing like rocket research and stuff for the Nazis. He actually had a rocket factory in Germany that was using like slave labor for much of the construction work, and they would hang the 5 slowest workers every day.
What?
Yeah, and then just like cut them down and not even bury them, just like leave them there, just to like, keep everyone working as fast as they can.
I think Twitter employees need to hear that. And they would have a deep appreciation for, I don't have my yoga room.
Yep. Yeah. So he was actually like a very integral part of like Hitler's whole regime. He was part of the SS, which is like, the inner core of Hitler's regime.
Did he not get in Nuremberg? The trials, he didn't go for a trial there?
No, he didn't. I think
why?
I think that was mainly like the doctors and stuff, right? Like Dr. Mengele and stuff.
I thought it was all. I don't know why he got a pass.
Why von Braun got a pass?
Yeah. Why don't we bring him over here and let's get him to work for us?
That's a great question, and that kind of, that question kind of leads me in the direction that maybe the moon landing was not faked, because the United States is like willing to overlook these atrocities that this guy, was involved in
to get what they want done,
just because he's got the knowledge and, is able to help us with this space race that we're involved in with us in the Soviet Union.
And so let's speak about that. Jason, you got anything on von Braun before we move on?
No, but I just want to actually fact check myself when I was talking about the satellite. So I looked it up, and the miles, what I was trying to convey was the satellites that Google has is 600 kilometers, 370 miles above us, versus the 12 miles that is orbiting around the moon. So with the Google satellites being further away from the planet, we still get better images, versus when we put the satellite around the moon at 12 miles and we got worse images. And so that was one of the things I wanted to convey, was like, if those images are right and those images are real and are not faked, then why aren't they better if they're supposedly quote unquote high resolution at closer distance to the moon in its orbit, versus how Google Maps gets their really good images, and they're 370 miles versus the 12 miles. So
that is a very good question.
That's an excellent question.
But no, I don't have anything.
You think like Google's got better cameras on their satellites?
That's a possibility.
Apparently so. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of who was, running our space program during the Apollo missions.
So von Braun. So let me ask you this, since you mentioned it, what was the big deal? The space race.
The space race,
you said that.
Yeah. So this is, during the height of the Cold War, the competition between Cold War rivals, the United States and the Soviet Union, to achieve, superior space flight capabilities. And I think it started out as like a missile-based arms race, sort of, and then it got involved with, we're gonna go up to the moon, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that.
Right.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of inner workings with what was going on with the space race, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
It's kind of funny if you think about it.
It really is. Yeah, I don't know.
Like, why aren't we competing for the space?
Yeah, there was just
I'm going to beat you to the moon.
There was just like a huge public interest. Like JFK gave like a speech like, we're going to put a man on the moon before the end of the decade. You remember him saying that?
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
And there was just like a huge public interest in it, and then off it went.
It seemed like, hey, let's do this thing that hasn't been done,
Right.
and we want to do it first,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And then so now that we've done it first, now nobody cares. Nobody's been back.
Right.
Well,
Yeah. So aside from the 6 Apollo missions that Byron listed off, a few minutes ago, we've never been back, and neither has any other country. The United States is the only country that has put man on the moon.
yeah. If it was such a big deal for a race, then why didn't somebody go, hey, they did it in 72.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why didn't another country go, hey, we're going to put our flag up there too? Dag blast it.
Yeah, that's a good
Is it
question.
because they don't have the? Well, either they didn't really land on the moon, or they don't have the capability.
So other
or they found something on the moon and they're like, you know what? Let's not go back.
That's
like
like the
something
dark
scary
side.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we ever claimed to have gone to the dark side of the moon, did we?
No, we haven't.
Yeah. So
I know.
So that's also, that's still also
it wasn't claimed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows? If we did go, and I seen the Transformers movie
Mm-hmm.
on the
Right.
dark. There was something on the dark side, and they wanted to hide it from the public.
Yep.
Interesting.
Because there was 12 minutes. There was 12 minutes that they lost contact, and those 12 minutes they actually went to the dark side and didn't tell the public.
Very interesting.
But that's a movie.
Yeah,
Of course, that's Mockingbird.
that is.
A lot of times they'll do movies and they'll go, ha ha, look, see, that's ridiculous.
Yes.
You can't.
Right.
There's nobody going to do that, and it's really true.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just
Just
to make you-
Transformers, there's no such thing.
Yeah,
What
just
are
to
you
make you
talking about?
think, just to make you think, oh, that's ridiculous. They won't do that,
Exactly.
but they really did.
Yes. And yeah,
Okay.
there have been, so like we're the only ones that have put man on the moon, but obviously other countries, particularly the Soviet Union, they had sent up like 2 tortoises and mealworms and
What?
flies and
A
stuff.
tortoise?
Yeah, they did that.
Are you joking?
No, they did, and other life forms as well around the moon. So I mean, it wasn't a manned mission. It's just like
You sent a turtle around the moon.
yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yep. And this was in
Russia?
This was in 1968 aboard Zond 5 is what it's called. And
Okay, so they beat us to the moon
well, with animals.
with a turtle.
And then
Hey, that counts.
and this was in 1968, which is 1 year before Apollo 11, and it was believed that they would soon repeat it with human cosmonauts. So we're like, okay,
So they were really close.
yeah, so like
And we're like, hey, wait, they just put turtles around the moon. We got to get busy.
yeah. Yep.
Why don't we send a dog up?
Yeah, or a monkey or something.
I
Yeah.
think there has been monkeys.
I think
Yeah.
the Russians
there
did
have.
that. Yes. So yeah, very, very interesting stuff with the space race going on, and just kind of
That's just funny to me.
yeah.
I'm sending turtles. What else did you say?
Sending it like worms. Yeah, there's just a couple worms up there, and
What if they crash landed and we
colonized.
got there? Yeah, and we got there. That's why we hadn't been back, because there was a turtle and there's some worms up there, and they actually became their own entity.
It's just a worm planet
Yeah.
up there.
Okay.
Yep.
So what else you got? Because I don't know. What I'm saying is I don't know if it's real, because, and how many times can you really say this? And this is, look, I wasn't there with Jesus, but I believe he walked the earth.
Right.
I
Right.
believe he's real. I
Mhm.
believe he died for our sins. I believe that.
Mhm.
So can I take that same thing for that faith to go, okay, I wasn't there. I didn't see the rocket ship. I wasn't on the moon. I wasn't with them, but I believe that you did it because you told me to.
Right. Yep.
Sure.
Am I supposed to do that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if you're supposed to do that. I mean, you can definitely take things at face value, and
You see where I'm going, though, right?
yes.
It's like I want to believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
But when you
Well, I mean, there's definitely been guys and people that have spoke out against that. I mean, going back to the first person, which I was telling you guys just a minute ago, Bill Casing, the guy was the first one that actually, kind of speak out and say, hey, this moon landing was a hoax. It was fake. And he started it. And like I was telling you before, he worked for Rocketdyne. So Rocketdyne was an Aerojet rocket design company that NASA was using, and he was the head of publications. So when he was going through all the stuff that they had for the Apollo 11, he's like, man, this doesn't add up. And so he started researching, digging in more, and he came to the conclusion that we faked the moon landing, that the government faked the moon landing to get ahead of the Russians, so we can be this nation that's above everybody else, right? And that's the kind of how it started. And then more people started to like dig into that. Like I said, there was a movie that was made. It's called Space Odyssey. Have you guys heard about that?
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, I've watched both of those.
Stanley Kubrick. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
the monolith.
There's just been, So there's just been a lot of people that haven't believed just because of certain aspects of the moon landing, the photos. Have you guys seen? Did you guys look at any of the photos that they took? They took a lot of pictures.
They did.
They took a lot of pictures. And did you see how they had the camera stationed on their suit?
Yeah, it was on their chest, right?
Yes, it was on their chest, and they kind of redesigned the camera because their gloves were too big to press any of the buttons on a normal functioning camera. So they had to adjust and like rig a camera with bigger buttons, like a bigger battery pack and stuff like that, so they can mess with it out in space. But yeah, there's a lot of things that were kind of a discrepancy when they came to the pictures, like the lunar shadows. Did you guys look into that?
Yeah, I've heard the shadows. A lot. I've heard about the shadows, the flag waving, and there's video too of them like hopping around and stuff. And it seems like they are, seeming like they're 1/6 of Earth's gravity, but there's no like dust or anything getting kicked up that would, show that, because like if you're going at 1/6, then like the dust would also be going at that same rate.
Oh, would it?
What's up?
It would?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it wouldn't be falling at the same rate it does here with Earth's gravity.
You'd see it go up.
It'd be slower.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, similar to the way.
So there was no dust kicking up?
No,
That's weird.
Not from what I saw. But I mean, you could say, hey, these cameras are from the late '60s. I mean, they're not going to pick up dust and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've heard that the lunar lander itself, that landed with just one engine underneath of it, and that would have created a crater. So like when it's going to land softly, there's going to be some sort of thruster or whatever to help it make a soft landing.
Right.
That would leave an indentation on the moon, and there was not one in the photos. That's one critique that I have heard.
So then I heard a debunk about that too, that when they got down to a certain feet off of the ground before they landed, they turned off their engines so they could thrust down at an appropriate speed.
Okay.
So that's why it didn't kick up and as much as it should have. So I mean, I don't know if that's what a physicist I was listening to said. That's why kind of like there wasn't any dust on the landing pads on the feet. But you did see, I saw in one of the photos that there were like some dust particles that were like spread out, like if you were to put your foot down or to put some kind of object down, that it made an imprint. So I did see that. So, but like you said, I mean, who knows, because those photos could be doctored.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I don't base a lot of my opinion on like what I'm able to see in photos, because like one thing that I came across when I was researching this is like coming back with photos, like we went through the Van Allen radiation belts, which a lot of people discuss when we start bringing up like going to the moon and stuff like
right.
And anyone that has ever like brought film through like an airport and run it through, the X-ray or whatever, the scanners at the airport, it'll ruin your film. So what I've heard some people say is there's like a lot of different camps like within, what people believe about the moon landing. And there's some people that think that the moon landing was real, but all of the footage and photos and stuff that we see is fake. Because that, they went all the way there and it was destroyed in the Van Allen radiation belts that, they had all this film and stuff, but due to that radiation exposure, it was, the film and stuff was destroyed.
Right. So they're like, hey, the videos, the footage is destroyed. So we have to fake that just to prove that we were there, but we actually were there.
Right.
But we have no way to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't this televised live?
It was. Yeah.
How do we get around that?
So, I mean, that kind of gets into the lost tapes portion of this conspiracy. So the lost telemetry data. So all of the SSTV, which stands for slow scan TV, there was an SSTV telecast and telemetry data from Apollo 11 that is just completely lost. The data tapes were used to record all transmitted data from this flight, basically. And when it was showed live, this SSTV transmission was converted to national television format live by NASA. They were doing this live. And the moonwalk's converted video signal was broadcast live around the world on July 21st, 1969. Since that's all gone, like the raw footage and stuff is gone, but the NTSC broadcast was recorded by many videotapes. So, just like people popping in a VHS tape and pressing record, and then that's what they got. Stuff like that. So these low quality recordings do still remain intact, but that original footage is gone. Like
gotcha.
That. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And speaking of recordings, I don't know if you guys knew, but there was a civilian radio recordings of the mission from a university in the UK. They dropped into the frequency, and they said they were just doing it for fun for the students. And they dropped in and they heard the whole mission broadcast through the radio.
Did they really? Through the radio?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Through the radio through the astronaut radio transmissions to mission control. They dropped into it and they heard it all.
Very interesting.
So that was pretty neat. Yeah, that was pretty neat.
So, I mean, it sounds like we actually did land on the moon.
Maybe.
I mean, we have the video footage, but what Jason just said, they actually ear witness account.
Sure, but you can fabricate that as well.
Are you talking about the mission control thing?
Yeah, you can fabricate. You can fabricate a communication.
Yeah, sure.
Between. Yeah, so I mean that's still, yes, that's evidence that kind of goes in the way of convincing people. Yeah, that it might be real, but still, you could make that up.
So okay, let's talk about all the people that were all the astronauts. They were actually accredited for going to the moon from 69 to 72. All those people we mentioned before.
Yeah.
Also, all those guys in the white short sleeve shirts sitting around looking at a monitor with those 60s glasses on.
Yeah.
What about those guys? What was that? Just because you always see them in the room looking at a monitor, talking to somebody, smoking cigarettes.
Right. Yeah.
Where are those guys?
What about them? Like, what do you mean?
Well, why can't they come out and go, I was there. I saw them, or were they just a bunch of actors?
No, they will claim that they were there and they saw it and they think it's real and stuff like that. I did watch a documentary called "Did We Go" from 2005, and basically the premise of that documentary was the filmmaker was going around. He believed that we went to the moon, and he was like, "I'm going to prove it." And he was kind of astonished at how hard it is to definitively prove it because of all these weird things, like the telemetry's gone.
Yeah.
So like Jason mentioned, like these people are listening into the, dispatch between mission control and the astronauts, but
they may have heard it, but they can't prove this. I heard that, but they can't reproduce it.
Yeah. Without the telemetry data, you can't say like, okay, this signal went to this antenna and like, this is where it was going from. So, I mean, they could have been, a few rooms over in the same building, just talking to each other over a radio signal.
I always thought it was strange. Like you are recording me live from the moon in
Right.
69, and I'm watching it on TV? That never made sense to me.
Yeah,
Like, how
it's
am I
kinda
getting this signal?
it's kind of like how I'm in an undisclosed location right now, but I'm actually in the room next door. See, they don't know that.
Right.
They think I'm in some kind of white van out in the middle in New Mexico,
Right.
looking out at the aliens. But no, I'm actually in the next room over, just because I have COVID.
Yeah. So yeah, they don't know that for real. So
Yeah.
they just got to take our
Exactly.
word for it.
Yeah, and there.
Exactly.
So now we can kind of go with a little bit of the push pull here, because we can go through some of the arguments. So,
Okay. So yeah, let's do that. Before you mention that, because I want to follow up on casing that Jason mentioned. He also claimed NASA staged both the Apollo 1 fire and the Space Shuttle Challenger incident, deliberately murdering the astronauts.
So the Space Shuttle Challenger thing, we might need to have an episode on that, because when I was going through this, I have heard that
The O-ring.
I've heard that there were no people on there, and
What?
And all those people are still alive. Yeah, that was.
Oh my!
Yeah, and someone went and they found like 6 out of the 7 of them. Like one of them's like a college professor now, and
Okay. Oh, so yeah, that's a rabbit hole we need to get.
and like she didn't even change her name. Like and she looks like just like the Challenger astronaut. So I mean, we could talk about that.
Oh, wow.
That's probably an
anyway.
episode.
Yeah, he claimed that as well. And I don't know if this is the one. He also participated in a Fox documentary called "Did We Land on the Moon?" That was in 2001. So that sounds different from
Different one, yeah.
Yeah. So I gotta go check those out.
Yep.
Anyway, go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, so let's get into some of the push-pull, like the different arguments for and against.
Okay, I'm ready.
Let's start with the lunar rock. So we mentioned earlier that a lot of these, basically all of the successful Apollo missions that went onto the surface of the moon, they brought back lunar material.
Yeah, in the moon bags.
Yes. So some of these rocks that have been alleged to have come back from the moon, we can just talk about the Apollo 11 mission, have indeed been determined to be not of Earth origin. But, okay, so that's an argument for us being on the moon, right?
Who determined that?
So they took it to labs and stuff.
Okay.
And, geologists looked
Put
at
in a
it,
petri dish.
all sorts of stuff.
Wuhan.
Yeah. And I guess just the way the different, compounds came together to make the rock, it doesn't happen that way on Earth or whatever.
Okay.
But kind of disputing that more on the it was a hoax side, you can also find moon rocks like this from meteorites, particularly in Antarctica. And there's actually photographs of Wernher von Braun in Antarctica 2 years prior to the Apollo 11 mission.
Excuse me?
He was down in Antarctica, and photos of him were taken while he was down there.
What?
Yeah.
That's not the same base we looked up on Google Maps, is it? You know that
no,
Russian base?
Yeah, that's a different one. Yeah,
Okay.
This is down in Antarctica.
Wow, those Russians in the poles, man.
Yeah. So he was down there.
He's not Russian. I'm sorry. He's German.
Yeah, he's German. So yeah. So we don't know what he was doing down there, but it would be very possible that he could, have gotten some meteorite material and they
put it in a moon bag.
Yeah, put it in a moon bag. So I mean, that's kind of that's one of the things that was discussed in the documentary, because he was like, "What about the moon rocks?" And then
Yeah, see, there's evidence.
Yeah, so he basically went down rabbit hole after rabbit hole with his search of evidence. And another thing is the laser tracking. So as part
That's
of the
weird.
Yeah, so as part of the Apollo 11 mission, reflectors were left on the surface of the moon for the purposes of laser tracking. And what that is basically where we can shoot up a laser at this moon reflector, and then the laser will bounce back to us on Earth, and we're able to capture that. And, we have sensors that look for it, and the laser will bounce back parallel to the beam that we're sending out, and we're able to, do readings on that laser tracking. So that would kind of imply that we went to the moon, right? There's reflectors set up there. But the thing that kind of goes against that narrative is the Russians were able to do this as well. And like we mentioned before, the Russians never put a man on the moon. They did this during their unmanned lunar missions. So so is it possible we did the same thing? We're not sure.
That's true. But they did do turtles.
Yeah. Yep. So.
Oh my gosh. Reflectors. Hey, what would be cool is a reflector on the turtle.
Yeah, the turtles.
And the turtle's just running around on the moon.
Yep. So, I mean, when you have these things, kind of going back and forth, and you kind of just have to, like you were saying, Byron, you kind of just have to take it on faith, because they, taped over the telemetry data. Because I guess during the early 1980s, NASA was like, facing a severe data tape shortage, and they were just like, yeah, it was standard practice to just write over stuff. So what we did is we went into our data tapes, picked the most important one that we have here of the first humans on the moon, and we just taped over it with some satellite thing or whatever.
Yeah, with I Love Lucy reruns.
Yeah, so that's what they think happened. They think in the 1980s they just taped over it, and that's it.
And I also read that there's this guy named Pat Norris. He was a software engineer for Apollo 11 mission, and he said that they didn't have enough data storage, so a lot of the data was just lost because they couldn't store all the data that they needed to store on the computer and the technology that they had back then. So a lot of it just got lost and just they overwrote it or just deleted it.
So they filled up a tape and then they still had more coming in that they just couldn't store.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then they wrote over what they had on the tape, so it's all gone.
Mm-hmm.
How convenient.
So I mean, without that,
was it okay? I was going to say how incompetent, but this is the government, right?
Right. Yeah. And so I do have one thing here that's kind of bombshell. So there's this guy named Cyrus Eugene Akers. So this is a video that you can find. I don't think it's on YouTube, but I was able to find it on BitChute. On his deathbed, he was telling his son about something called Project Slam Dunk, which happened in 1968 on Cannon Air Force Base in Clovis, New Mexico. And Cyrus Eugene Akers was the chief of security there. And what he told his son on his deathbed is that there were 2 large hangars that were connected. And in 1968, they brought in hundreds of dump trucks, and they came in and dumped sand and stone into these hangars. And then they came in and powdered over everything with cement powder to make it look like a lunar landscape. They painted the walls and ceilings a flat black as well. And then they assembled a lunar lander inside of the hangars. And he was sworn to secrecy by the NSA, and he would be put in prison or killed for breaking that oath. And it just killed him that he had to keep that secret his entire life, so he felt like he had to tell someone before he died. So
I'm going out anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and spill the beans.
Yep, so he spilled his beans to his son, and he said that he was one of 3 people tasked with guarding the entrance to those hangars, and he was given a list of 15 people that were allowed to enter. And this list included President Johnson, Neil Armstrong, James Van Allen. He's the guy that the Van Allen belts are named after. And Werner von Braun, and a few others. And then afterwards, after they were done, they cleaned everything up. And since there was also a lot of construction going on at the base at the time, sand, cement powder, all these other materials that were used, it was not questioned. They didn't really have to be very sneaky about getting rid of it because there was construction going on at Cannon Air Force Base at the time. So when I hear of like deathbed confessions and stuff like that, I always think it would be so weird for somebody to take that opportunity to just come up with some outrageous lie, especially like, this guy was describing his dad as somebody who basically despised liars. He, raised his son to basically never lie, and anytime he did, there was always severe punishment for him. And the video that you can find on BitChute is, let me see if I can pull it up. It's called Moon Landing Deathbed Confession. And the person in the video is actually Cyrus Eugene Akers' son, who is now telling the full story on his own deathbed because he has cancer and he actually died at the beginning of this year. So it's a video that came out in 2022.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird story.
So has he told this story before he's on his deathbed?
No. So
you're kidding me.
I think
so father told son on deathbed and he kept it a secret.
I think he largely kept it a secret. He might have told some people, and then he was saying that, some people did contact him as if they knew that he knew somehow, and basically gave him the same ultimatum that his dad had, like where, hey, you could get in a lot of trouble if you tell this.
Oh, wow. How many people are alive that was on that list?
That's a good question.
Von Braun?
He's dead.
Okay. What about Van Allen?
I'm not sure.
He was probably killed by radiation.
I think Neil Armstrong is still alive, right?
Neil Armstrong. That was a joke, by the way. Neil Armstrong.
Yep.
Buzz? Was he on the list?
I don't know if he was.
I didn't hear you mention it.
I didn't.
But Lyndon B. Johnson?
Yeah,
he's dead.
President Johnson, he's dead. But yeah, there are living members of that list still. And
somebody should talk to those folks.
Yeah, someone should. The guy,
what was the name of that base?
Cannon Air Force Base, and that's in Clovis, New Mexico.
Cannon Air Force. Keep talking. I'm looking this up.
Yeah.
Side note, I've been to Clovis numerous times.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, my uncle actually worked at that Air Force base.
Oh,
that's right. I remember the pilot show. You was telling us about the Air Force base that you were close to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one. That was a different one, but I've been to the Clovis Air Force.
Okay,
base.
I'll
actually lived on that Air Force base for a summer.
That's pretty cool.
Air Force base.
Yeah. And they actually used to have on the website, according to this deathbed video that I watched, they used to have like a record of, who was, visiting the base and when, and kind of to corroborate the story, but they apparently got rid of it off their website that, President Johnson was there on some day in 1968, and that's when they claimed they filmed it. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously a lot to chew on. It's a pretty weird thing to lie about on your deathbed. And I mean, if that ends up being real, it could say that we either never went or that we did go and, our footage was destroyed. Yeah, that's the guy right there.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is on the confessionalspodcast.com.
Yeah. And it's I highly recommend everyone to go watch the video because it's very interesting. And so, yeah, it kind of lends...
I'll put all that in the blog as well, so you have access to it if you just want to click a link.
Yeah, so it sort of lends itself to the moon landing was completely hoaxed, or we actually went and the footage was destroyed, so we felt like the public was so attached to it we had to give them something. So we're gonna go film something in a hangar with the walls painted black and powdered cement for the moon surface. So yeah, very interesting stuff.
That is interesting.
Yep.
So now I'm torn.
So
I don't know if we win or not.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of people obviously have like a severe lack of trust for NASA. Have you heard that? Basically, anybody who's in like the flat Earth camp, they think everything that NASA says is a complete and total lie. Have you ever heard any of this?
I have not.
Yeah,
not from the flat earthers.
Yep. So,
but I mean, I can see that. I mean, NASA's see. I used to think NASA was an independent organization.
They are not.
But it's owned by the government.
Yes.
What about Elon? I mean, he's putting up cars in orbit.
He is, yeah. That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So he's just got a car floating around with a turtle in it.
Yep.
With
a turtle in it.
Why doesn't he just go to the moon?
I don't know,
He
man.
probably, I mean, he would be the one to go, you know what? I don't know if it was real or fake, but let me just hold my beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard him talk about why he hasn't gone, because somebody's asked him before. He just said it's not cost effective. He goes, it doesn't make sense financially to go to the moon.
That's the other thing is, people say, well, why haven't we been back? Blah blah blah. It's like, why? What is on the moon?
I don't know.
Other than saying, hey, look at me, look what I did.
I've
Some
heard
space turtle.
I've heard.
The Earth base, yes.
I've heard that the moon is and obviously this is just stuff I read on the internet, so I mean, you can fact check me here. A lot of people say that the moon is actually a very rich source of hydrogen, which could have some sort of purposes that we might need, but I don't know if you really need to go to the moon to get hydrogen.
That's weird.
Yeah. So I don't know. That is a good question. What is the reason, really,
Yeah.
Not sure.
What if it was just hollow?
I don't know.
It was just a created structure.
What if it's just cheese?
Yeah, just cheese. Hey, here I'm going to go over some of these debunking theories here. Did you have some more anything else right there?
So we can talk about like the cost. So we kind of brushed on that. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
So in 1973 dollars, the Apollo program cost $25.4 billion.
Billion.
And if you adjust that for inflation, that's like over $165 billion today. That's how much money.
6,500.
What?
Billion. Is that what you?
No, 165
Oh,
billion.
165. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
165 billion is how much that program would cost today to do.
Yeah, unless you're going to get, I just, the benefit.
Right.
Why spend that much tax dollars
So let's say
to get some moon rocks?
Let's say it was faked. Okay.
Okay, let's just say, let's go with that theory.
For the sake of argument, let's say it was faked, and I am Werner von Braun. I'm the head of NASA, and I just got, these billions of dollars of taxpayer money flowing into my organization, and we can do some sort. We can even do a relatively high budget thing where we film it, and then we basically embezzled the rest. The rest of that money we can allocate towards, some sort of black project that we're working on behind the scenes. We can put it towards anything we want. That's kind of like what I've read a few times with the people that think it was fake. They think it was a big embezzlement of the money.
Well, okay, let's go down that rabbit hole then. So if it is faked, I get money from the government. Does the government know I faked it? Or I faked it for the government and embezzled my money?
Yes.
Do they think I went?
Does like the president think?
Well, whoever gave me the money, the tax dollars.
Yeah, so
y'all going to the moon? Oh, here's some money. Go ahead. And then we're going to fake this. We didn't really go, but we're going to keep the rest of the money. But they think we went, so everything's good.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I don't think obviously the average person doesn't know. And people in Congress that are, voting on, spending bills and stuff like that, I don't think they would know either.
This is NASA we're talking about.
Yeah, this is NASA. Yeah, so like if there's
like everybody would have to be in on it.
Who?
Everybody at NASA.
I don't think so. I think you
don't think?
No, I think you could do it with just a few people. I think you could you could compartmentalize.
That is impressive.
Because think about like the Manhattan Project. They had like 100,000 people working on that, and they had it compartmentalized so well that people didn't even know that they were working on, developing.
I'm doing this one thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing the thing. I don't even know what I'm doing it for.
Right.
But the whole picture is I've got this bomb.
Yeah. Only the people at the top are really aware of the whole thing. It's possible, right? I'm not saying that definitively happened. I'm just,
Yeah. Well, so let's say let's go down that hole. If it was fake. So the only reason other than embezzlement and getting something money that I want to do a side project, like, do whatever. Mm-hmm. The only other reason is they're saying is we beat Russia to the moon.
Right. And in the movie Interstellar, which sometimes Hollywood will try to tell us things through cinema. The main character's daughter, Murph, she gets in trouble at school for like bringing his old textbook to school where it's talking about the moon landing.
Yeah.
And this movie takes place in 2067, and the teacher's like, yeah, but it was fake though. She didn't mention that it was a piece of propaganda that we used to bankrupt the Soviets into spending money on useless machines.
Right.
And I was like, whoa, what?
I got to go back. I just watched it last night, and it just flew right by me.
Yeah, and I was like, is Christopher Nolan trying to tell us something here? Or,
Genius. You're a genius there.
Yeah, so...
And what was the other one you mentioned in The Shining?
Yeah, in The Shining. So that's a Stanley Kubrick film. There are just like there's like a weird scene in that movie that kind of alludes to maybe Stanley Kubrick having some sort of involvement, and that's one thing you'll read about when you're discussing moon landing conspiracies is maybe he filmed it, and he's well known in the filmmaking world for having such an eye for perfection and making sure all the details make sense and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he was actually applauded by everybody for his 2001: A Space Odyssey when he made that. Like, all these outer space experts and stuff and astronauts were like looking at it and they're like, this is real, this is legit, because he's just that much of a perfectionist, I guess. And in The Shining, there's a scene where the little boy in that, he's wearing a sweater that says Apollo 11 on it, and it has a picture of like a rocket on it. It says Apollo 11 on it. And he stands up real weird from like this carpet, and on the carpet pattern, it kind of looks like, like a launch pad sort of. He's standing on it in a way where it looks like the rocket on his shirt is taking off. And he walks into hotel room 237, and the moon is 237,000 miles away from Earth. And in the book, The Shining, the hotel room was actually 217. So that was changed very explicitly. Stanley Kubrick is meticulous about every detail in his movie. So that was changed for a reason. So kind of weird. And then he comes out of the room with like his shirt ripped and like some hand marks around his neck as if he was, choked or whatever. And some people think that that's like Stanley Kubrick saying like, hey, I was in on it, but the choke around my neck, they got me on a gag order. Like I can't tell anyone, but this is, a subliminal way of him telling. That's what they think.
So what's he saying? It was faked?
Yeah, I mean, that's what people interpret that as. Like, he was involved and he was, basically told to keep silent about it. I don't know.
Gotcha.
That much I don't know about Stanley Kubrick, but that's just one thing I thought I'd throw in the discussion because it's an interesting talking point.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go over some of what else you got? I'm going to go over some of these debunks.
Yeah, go over a debunk. Let's
here's a debunk list here, Jason. Talking about the shadows. Mm-hmm. Shadows in the moon landing photos prove the images were faked. And we're looking at the images, and they're saying that if you look closely at the shadows cast by Neil Armstrong, another object was just out of shot. What's wrong with them? Because they're not parallel. So this image has been taken as proof by conspiracy theorists that the moon landings were faked. And it says, surely if the sun was the only light source, then the shadows would be parallel. Doesn't this prove that the whole scene was mocked up in a studio with multiple lighting sources creating different shadow patterns?
Negative, because the perspective of the shot can be changed by the wide angle of the lens. So if you have a wider lens and it's a wider view, it can change the perspective of the shadows.
Yeah. And what they're saying here is this is on the surface of the moon, but we can reproduce this effect anytime that we're on Earth. Just go outside when the sun is low and you see this effect for yourself. Just like the images from Apollo 11, the shadows are not parallel on Earth.
I can see that.
But that's been debunked because of the angles of the the wide viewing angles of the camera that they had on themselves. So if you get the exact camera that they used when they went up to the moon, you can see that the lenses were a different type of lens, and they were made for wide angles.
Okay.
And so that kind of distorted that the shadows being colored to each other.
All right. Number 2 is the Allen belt, the Van Allen radiation belt. People are saying you can't go through it because you're going to get radiation. Well, they're debunking this because it's like fire walking. You're not going to stand in the fire and burn your feet. You're going to go through it quickly, and it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah, I heard they went through like the thinnest part of it.
That's their debunk.
Yeah, because it's not like uniformly thick. It's kind of thinner around the North and South Pole, and there are portions of it where you can kind of go through it real quickly if you need to. So I have heard that that's the path they took. They were aware of the belts because James Van Allen was, on the team, and I guess he was able to give them instruction on where they needed to go.
Did he discover that, and that's why he got named?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The physics building at the University of Iowa is named after him.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
What about Von Braun?
Nope.
Nothing
named after him,
dude. Let's see. Conspiracy theory 3. Why are there no stars in the pictures of the NASA moon landing? That's what.
Why, dude?
They're saying. Let's see what the debunk here. Conspiracy theories argue that the lack of stars in the Apollo 11 mission proved that this was staged. NASA could not have faked the full wonder of the lunar sky, so they simply chose not to include any stars at all. Well, another solution is both astronauts and the lunar landscape itself are brightly lit by the sun. The sky may look black, but remember, this is in fact daytime on the moon. If you're going to take a photo of a brightly lit scene, your camera's shutter speed needs to be fast enough and your aperture incredibly small. In that situation, faint objects like stars just aren't going to show up.
That's an interesting
That
point.
sounds like science.
Yeah.
What do you got, Jason?
I got the same thing that you did on that.
Okay.
There was something weird about that though. Did you guys watch the press conference that Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Connolly gave after they landed back on Earth? Where they kind of
that I did see that. That was so weird.
Yeah, like if I'm reading body language and stuff, they weren't acting like guys that went to the moon and were all pumped about it. They looked like they were like kind of like humiliated or like very.
They looked like they had done something and were told to be quiet.
Yeah,
that's what I got out of that.
And I have to go back and listen, so I might get fact check on this, but I think they also disagreed during that because someone asked questions about did they see stars, and I think either Buzz Aldrin or Neil Armstrong said they did not, and then I think Connolly said he did. So they were like disagreeing about whether or not they saw stars,
and they kept looking at each other.
Yeah,
during that press con, like,
yeah,
I don't know what to answer, and I don't know what you're gonna say.
Yep.
It was strange.
And I'm not sure if that difference could just be because Michael Connolly didn't walk on the moon. He was up in lunar orbit while the other two guys were down there.
Yeah.
And then they hooked back up once they took off the moon. But
and I heard that for every hour you're on the moon, it's 7 years here on the planet.
Oh, is it? No. What?
So that's why they were younger. No, that's from Interstellar.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You know, what's his name? Man's planet. Edmund's planet? No. Miller's planet. It was so close it was so close to the gargantuan.
Oh yeah.
Every hour spent on the planet was 7 years on the Earth.
Wow.
Even the dude that stayed back up when they got up there, he was old as dirt.
Yeah,
that's like, hey, I was waiting on you.
That's weird.
I ran out of crackers. Anyway, conspiracy theory number 4. Now I've heard this. This doesn't even make sense. The flag waving in the wind. Of course, there's no wind, and I know they put the flag up there to make it look like that.
Yeah, so
it's not waving in the wind.
So yeah, the reason it's standing like that is because it's got the pole that goes in the ground, and then it also has a pole, if you look at the top of the flag, that keeps it standing out.
Because it would go straight down because there's whatever.
It
would make everything go straight down.
So
I forgot.
I have heard people come at this one because like apparently there's a video out there. I'm not sure which astronaut runs by it, but they kind of like hop by it, and then you can see the flag like react to it. As if like a breeze was created from them walking by, which would not happen on the moon.
That's true.
I have heard people say that, so I don't really know where I stand on that. But I think when people say like it's waving, they're not aware that there's that rod on the top of the flag that's keeping it,
Yeah, they're saying
out from the pole.
They're saying because it's been set like this because it appears to be waving in the wind, but all the wrinkles are there because it's literally been screwed up for 4 days en route to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying it was just wadded up. That's why it looks kind of wrinkly like that. Here's one we already talked about. Why have we not been back to the moon since then? Let's see. The answer is we changed priorities from a combination of the Vietnam War, but also there was this geopolitical element of thinking. We've won the race just as we got good at doing science on the moon, we abandoned it. Instead, attention turned to the space shuttle program and latterly the International Space Station, which has been permanently inhabited by teams of astronauts since November 2000. But that doesn't mean humans couldn't return to the moon in the future.
Okay. I guess it would just be like, what is the reason?
Yes. Just because I don't know if the reason. I don't know if we haven't been back as a reason to say, oh, we never went.
Yeah, I don't think that's a strong argument.
Because like you said, that if the dude faked it with all that money that they got,
yeah.
Something else happened. Let's see. 50 years. That's all I got.
That's all of them, right?
Yeah, that's all I got right there.
Okay. Yeah, those are the big ones that you'll hear, the shadows, the flag waving, like why haven't we gone back, things like that. But
yeah, I saw a Mythbusters episode where they got complete scaled model of
I saw that.
the lunar module and how the light was going to, and they set it up completely to debunk all the theories of. Because there was one where they're climbing down the ladder and the shadows are different. Yeah, it's not casting right.
Yeah, he wasn't fully dark. Like you could still see the astronaut.
Yeah, and they were like, where'd the light come from? But, I don't know about Mythbusters. I feel like they're propaganda as well, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't touch the 9/11 episode.
I know.
Right?
Why didn't they do that?
Yeah, I mean.
Why didn't you create the exact situation that you said the official story was, so you could,
Yeah.
bust that myth.
I saw a video where someone like Adam Savage, one of the guys on Mythbusters, was giving a talk somewhere, and he had a Q&A session, and one guy was like, "Why don't you do a 9/11 episode?" And the whole crowd just like cheered, and and then he was like, "It's been on our list for a really long time, but I don't know if we'll be able to like make a model for that. It'd be hard." Meanwhile, there's like people online that
dude, there's engineers that's doing it in their backyard.
I know. Yes.
I saw a dude split beam with thermite.
Yeah. I saw that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's.
You guys are propaganda.
They're probably specifically told not to.
They probably are. I mean, they're probably CIA operatives.
They could be.
That whole thing is set up by CIA.
They probably got, they're submitting their episodes to the CIA for approval.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're making us look good, bro.
Yeah, so I mean, that's all I got on the moon landing.
That's all I got. So the question is it real or fake? I'll go ahead with my thoughts. I think we landed on the moon. I just can't prove it.
Okay. Yeah,
so I'm staying with that. I can't prove it. I have no physical evidence to prove what I'm saying is true. But I think we went to the moon. That's my thought.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like 50-50.
What are you?
I'm like 50-50 on it. I don't really know. So like the story that Cyrus Eugene Akers said, it sticks with me a lot. I give that a lot of weight just because I feel like it would be very weird to lie on your deathbed about something.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's not possible or that someone wouldn't do that, but it seems odd to me that someone would. And even if what he's saying is true, that doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't go. It could have just been like an insurance policy to make sure we had some sort of footage to show the American
like you
public.
said, the stuff that was destroyed.
Yeah.
Maybe I had to create this so I could prove that I did go.
Right. And
because you won't believe me if I just said it.
Yeah, and I think that's totally possible. So I'm kind of split on it. I don't really know.
You don't have any evidence.
Yeah, it is weird to me that that's like the only time that we have sent people outside of low Earth orbit.
And it was so long ago.
And it was very long ago. You'd think like, I understand like priorities change and things like that. Maybe they had budgetary issues some years and things like this. But we would think like if that was like the rate we were going during that time, like Mars would have been like a pretty, it would have been high up on the agenda item and people would have been all about it. I don't know. But like I said, I mean, I don't give that a ton of weight because, there could be budget issues and stuff like that and different leadership with different ideas. So I don't know. I'm split on it, man. I could see us having gone and, using the footage.
But you wouldn't be surprised if it was faked either.
I wouldn't be. No,
yeah.
I wouldn't be overly surprised if, they came out and said, "Hey, we faked all of this. No one has ever been to the moon."
We're sorry.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, there's no way for us to like confirm things like on our own. Because like while we were doing this, I Googled like, are there telescopes that you can get to where you can see the flag and the lunar rover on the moon? And it says, yes, that stuff's still on the moon, but you cannot see it using a telescope. So we have to basically trust NASA because they're the only ones that can like.
Well, what about the Hubble?
Yeah, so the Hubble.
Surely you can see it from there.
I
mean, because that's in orbit.
I don't think you can. So it says the Hubble Space Telescope is only 2.4 meters in diameter, which is much too small. You would need an optical wavelength telescope of around 200 meters in diameter to see it. Isn't that weird?
What? They look at other galaxies. What are you talking about?
I don't know. This is on Ask an Astronomer.
They've got pictures of other galaxies with that telescope, right?
I think, yeah.
Jason, back me up here.
Yeah, you're right. I don't trust the government. So I personally think it never happened. I don't think it's ever happened. I think they lie to us about everything. They can't tell the truth to save their lives. So why would they do that when we're trying to win the race against the Russians? You know what I mean? So
okay, I like that answer. Check this out though. If that's the case, and I'm sure there are Russian people that go, "Hey, look, the Americans think it's a hoax. Why don't we show them up? Why don't we actually go to the moon and go, hey, look, y'all faked it. We're actually here first. Y'all didn't win," and give them the middle finger.
It could be.
Why don't they do that?
I mean, maybe it's just so hard to get there. Like it is so far away.
How far away is it?
237,000 miles.
I don't even want to go. I don't want to do that.
Like, yeah, the United States is like 3,000
That's
miles across. So think about that. It's almost like 100 times.
Think about you're so close to death. I mean, one small mistake and it's over.
And you're out in deep space.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
You're not calling 911.
That's the thing. Yeah, there's like no room for error.
No.
Like, even though like Apollo 13, like there was a huge issue there and they were able to like scramble back to Earth on the on the landing module.
Right.
Can you imagine how scary that would be?
Dude, I don't even want to think about it.
Like, just something's going wrong and you're just out in space. Oh.
Have you seen the movie Gravity?
No, I've been told.
Yeah.
That's freaky. I mean,
Great
I'm like,
movie.
that is very intense and anxiety. Like,
Just drifting off.
yes,
Yeah.
because here's what I used to think that, you're floating in space because you're floating. You're not. You're in a constant state of free fall.
Interesting.
You're constantly falling
constantly spinning.
because of orbit and gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You're just falling. It just doesn't feel like it. But you're in a constant state of free fall.
Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, go watch Gravity. It's scary
I'll check that out.
because
It's a horror movie, right?
no, it's not really. No, it's not a horror movie. It's Sandra Bullock gets they're out there doing whatever in the space shuttle, and they get hit by debris, and she gets cut off.
Wait, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Well, I
now.
mean, that's the premise. She gets cut off.
That's a horror
and
movie.
she has to deal with.
That
That's
is.
true.
Yeah, like Titanic.
She has to deal with gravity,
Yeah.
and so she has to get to this other space station, and it's just very intense.
Yeah.
but
I'll check that out.
George Clooney's in it. They fall in love. It's actually a romance.
Okay.
So one could say it's a romance movie, not a horror
Well,
movie.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
so is Interstellar. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's all about love.
Yeah, the best movies, they transcend genre.
Yeah, it
right?
transcends
like you watch-
time and space.
Yeah, like you watch Terminator 1, that's a horror movie. That's a romance. That's a sci-fi.
That's definitely a love story.
Yeah, it's everything.
Tommy Boy. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, man.
Well, I think we have pretty much covered everything on the moon landing. I think we went there. I just can't prove it. Jason says we didn't do it because the government lies to everybody. And Mike is 50-50 on the fence.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts.
It could be there or it could be fake. He's not sure, but he wouldn't be surprised either way. But that is the question of the day. Do you think the moon land... Was that the... I already forgot. It's been an hour.
I think that was it, yeah.
Is the moon landing... Oh, no, I asked, were you there when the rockets went off? I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to put question of the day, do you think the moon landing is real? That's what I'm going to put. And then I'll put a poll of, how many astronauts were on Apollo 6, which is not even a thing. But I'll just make something up.
Yeah, just see if they were actually listening.
Right. I doubt. If you've listened this far, we appreciate it. That one listener that's out there, we appreciate. If you've listened this far, we thank you. We appreciate your time. And we just love doing this because we're three weirdos on the mic. Hey, check us out on Instagram. You can click the link in the bio. And you can also go to our website and listen to our podcast. Make sure you leave a comment and follow us on Spotify. Tune in next week when you might hear Mike say...
Operation Mockingbird has infiltrated the big tech companies.
Are you serious?
I think so.
Wow.